In a small village temple, somewhere in the quiet plains of northern Vietnam, two people chose to leave this world in the most silent way possible. One of them we've already met, Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh, the master who let go of the world through absolute stillness, leaving behind an incorruptible body that remains seated, even to this day. But few notice that right beside him, in that very same temple, there is another, also a Zen master, also seated in meditation, also leaving behind a body that never decayed. Two figures, yet not just statues. These are real bodies, two preserved forms, sitting side by side in the dim light of Dao Pagoda's main hall. One is Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh. The other is Venerable Vũ Khắc Trung. Perhaps you're wondering, why in the same temple are there two incorruptible monks? Is it a miracle? Is it the result of a lifetime of disciplined practice? Or is it simply one of life's quiet mysteries, waiting for us to sit with it a little longer? Maybe the answer is not as important as the way we choose to listen to the story. Because the story of Vũ Khắc Trung is not a copy of Vũ Khắc Minh's. It's a different piece of the puzzle, more silent, more hidden, but no less profound. Vũ Khắc Trung, the silent companion. Not many speak of him. His name often comes second, mentioned quietly, if mentioned at all. But perhaps that very silence is what makes his story even more meaningful. Because in this life, not everyone wants to lead. Some choose to walk alongside, or even step back, simply to preserve the fullness of stillness. Centuries have passed, and yet these two bodies remain seated side by side in Dao Pagoda, like two lanterns, not burning brightly, but never extinguished. Visitors come, often knowing only of one. Then they glance to the other side and see another figure still sitting quietly. And they ask, "Who is this?" Some say they were fellow monks. Others say they were two friends of the path, practicing together, keeping their vows in silence, instructing their disciple never to turn them into objects of worship, and leaving behind their preserved bodies as a final reminder of letting go completely. But perhaps they were simply two people who chose to leave without disturbing the world. No need for fanfare, no need for their names to echo, just to sit still and allow everything to dissolve into quiet. Today, we will gently open another door in that same temple. Step into the story of Venerable Vũ Khắc Trung, the master who lived and departed in the quietest way, yet somehow made time itself pause beside him. Let's sit together for a moment. Slow the breath and listen. No rush. No need to seek for answers. Just follow where the story naturally leads. There are some people who leave behind no written words, no recorded teachings. But the way they live their lives becomes the deepest lesson of all. Venerable Vũ Khắc Trung was one of those people. There aren't many documents that describe his life in detail. What we do know is simple. He chose to spend his final years in complete stillness at a small temple known as Dao Pagoda. Dao Pagoda, or Than Dao Tu as it was once called, is located in Nguyen Tri village in what is now Thuong Tin District, Hanoi. The temple dates back to the Lai dynasty. Its tiled roofs have gathered moss over the centuries. Its stone steps have been worn smooth by the footsteps of time. And in that quiet setting, Venerable Vũ Khắc Trung lived a life of deep silence. He didn't seek fame. He didn't build a legacy. He didn't try to make himself known to the world. Some say he spent his entire monastic life at Dao Pagoda, never once stepping beyond the temple gates after taking his vows. Day after day, his life flowed like a drop of water melting into the river of stillness. He lived simply, eating humble meals, drinking plain water, never indulging in elaborate food or comforts. In the early mornings, before the sun had fully risen, he would sweep the temple grounds. Each movement of the broom, gentle, as if afraid to disturb a fallen petal on the path. Each sweep was like brushing away dust from the mind, not just the ground. Day after day, he sat in meditation beneath the trees. Sometimes under the sacred Bodhi tree, sometimes in his small meditation room. Each breath in, each breath out, like weaving threads of silence into the fabric of life. People in the village say he rarely spoke. When someone asked him about the Dharma, he would just smile. Sometimes he would nod. Sometimes he would simply stay quiet. But it was that silence that people remember most. He kept his vows strictly. Not just the precepts written in the sutras, but the kind of discipline that touches every breath, every step, every glance. He walked gently. He ate just enough, and he kept his mind, speech, and body free from unnecessary weight. Once someone saw him standing still in front of a patch of soft grass. They asked him why he wasn't moving forward. He smiled softly and said, "Grass too has its own life." A simple sentence, but within it, a whole way of being. A life of humility, of making space for everything around him, of not pushing forward when it wasn't needed. As the story is told, in the days before his passing, he gradually let go of food. He drank only water. This is part of oral tradition. There's no official document confirming it, but the story has been passed down for generations as a way to describe his final days, letting go, step by step, of the body itself. Personally, I think, whether that detail is literally true or not, it still reflects the spirit of someone who was fully prepared to leave this world. No regrets, no clinging. Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh lived this way. Quietly, without making noise, without arguing over teachings, without trying to leave a legacy. And yet, by not trying to leave a mark, he became a mark of stillness itself. In a world so full of noise, so full of debates about right and wrong, he just sat there, in silence, not judging, not adding anything more. Day after day, he swept the temple courtyard. He drank water. He meditated beneath the trees. Time passed like a river flowing past a mountain, softly, leaving no scars. Some say he practiced alongside Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh. Two figures, two monks, sitting in meditation, side by side. Not one leading, not one following. Just walking the path together without leaving any noise behind. At Dao Pagoda, there are mornings wrapped in mist when the main hall is completely silent. And there, the two incorruptible bodies still sit, like two small mountains, unmoving, unchanged. I once sat for a long time in that very hall, looking at the two preserved bodies. On one side, Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh. On the other, Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh. To be honest, I didn't feel any sense of mystery. I just felt my own heart slow down, as if time itself had slowed with me. Some people spend their whole lives trying to become someone. Others choose to simply be. For Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh, perhaps each passing day was like a flower blooming, then fading in silence. No regret, no expectation, just stillness, like a morning dewdrop that dissolves into the air as the sun gently rises. Some deaths are not like what we usually imagine when we think about leaving this world. They are not endings. They are not disappearances. They are transformations, gentle, effortless, like a dewdrop dissolving into the air when the morning sun appears. That was the way Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh closed the chapter of his life. At nearly 100 years old, knowing his time had come, he quietly chose to enter retreat. He made no announcements. He held no ceremonies. He told no one in the village, not even the temple monks. He simply sat down in his meditation chamber, gathered his mind and body, and stepped into a realm of his own. As the story is told, before entering his final meditation, he gave a simple instruction to his disciples. Do not open the door too soon. Wait until you see a sign. Then you may come in. No one knew what that sign would be. There was no sound of a wooden bell, as in the case of Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh. No mystical signal, no supernatural omen, just silence, endless silence. Day after day, his disciples and the villagers simply waited. They followed his words with no restlessness, no craving for answers. They allowed their master to be fully present with the practice he had chosen for his final journey. 100 days passed. That number, perhaps it was literal, perhaps it was symbolic. In ancient practice, 100 days often means a time long enough for something to fully settle, long enough to let go. And then the door to the chamber was gently opened. The disciples stepped inside and found their teacher still sitting there, in full lotus position, back straight, face calm, eyes softly closed as if still in meditation. But the breath had stopped a long time ago. What was strange was not the death itself. It was the way his body remained. There was no decay, no unusual smell, no change in the color of his skin. Everything remained intact, as if he were simply sleeping a very long sleep. His disciples and the villagers did not call it a miracle. They did not seek to turn it into legend. They simply chose to preserve his body as a symbol of purity and a life well lived. According to the stele at Dao Pagoda, Venerable Vũ Khắc Trung's body was carefully coated in layers of traditional lacquer, then covered in gold leaf, not to glorify him, not to turn him into an object of worship, but to protect the body from the wear of time. Today, his body is still kept in the 9 Lotus Tower at Dao Pagoda. It has endured through countless rains and seasons, through centuries of change. That meditative posture still remains, silent, unmoved by the passing of years. Some visitors come, bow before the incorruptible body, and find tears falling without knowing exactly why. Others stand quietly, watching for a long time, then leave with a soft stillness carried silently in their hearts. No one needs to say the words out loud, but everyone understands. What Venerable Vũ Khắc Trung left behind was not just an incorruptible body. He left behind a teaching about letting go, about living each moment fully so that when the time comes to leave, we can do so as calmly as when we first sat down to rest. More than 300 years have passed, and still his body remains, like a symbol of serenity that stands beyond the limits of time. And perhaps, even now, many people quietly ask themselves, is it possible that in this very human body, we too can become meditation itself? I still remember the first time I stepped into the main hall of Dao Pagoda. It was just an ordinary day, nothing special. The kind of morning when the sun hasn't fully risen yet and dew still clings to the leaves outside the temple yard. I stood there, facing the 2 incorruptible bodies. One was Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh, the other, Venerable Vũ Khắc Trung. They were still sitting there, side by side, completely unmoving. Layers of gold leaf shining faintly on top of old lacquer, but the posture stayed the same, as if time had never passed. I'm not sure how to describe the feeling in that moment. All I know is my mind slowed down. The noise inside my head, the usual list of things to do, the plans for later, they all just paused. Maybe we're too used to rushing through the day, too used to chasing after tasks, goals, deadlines. But when you stand there, in front of these 2 incorruptible bodies, you suddenly realize there are people who chose to spend their entire lives simply sitting still. And when they left this world, they kept sitting just like that. I ask myself, is this a miracle? Or is it just the natural result of a life so simple, so pure, that there was nothing left to decay? Honestly, I don't know. And maybe I don't need to know. Because standing there, the important thing wasn't about understanding. It wasn't about figuring out what's true or what's not. It was about feeling a deep stillness, a kind of presence that didn't need to say anything. Sometimes I think we spend so much time wondering how to live fully. But maybe living fully is just learning how to sit still for a while, like Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh did. He didn't leave behind grand teachings, no books, no famous sermons, just a life so ordinary, so quiet, that even death couldn't really separate him from the present moment. I still remember the light in the hall that day, soft beams slipping through the temple doors, gently resting on the lacquer, glimmering on the gold. But what stayed with me most wasn't the light. It was the silence. Some people say the true gift isn't the incorruptible body. It's the space he left behind for others to slow down, to breathe, to sit quietly. I'm not sure if that's the whole truth. But when I left the temple, walking away from the main hall, I carried something with me. It wasn't really emotion. It wasn't exactly awe. It was a soft stillness inside, and a quiet question that kept whispering in my mind. Is it possible to live like that too? To slow down, to live more lightly, just to leave behind a little silence. Maybe everyone who hears this story will have their own answer. For me, standing before the incorruptible body wasn't about searching for something magical. It was about learning to accept impermanence without fear, to realize that when you live deeply enough, even when you go, you still remain in the hearts of others, quietly. I don't know when you're listening to this. Maybe it's during a restless evening. Maybe on a day that feels too heavy. But if you can, try sitting still for a while. Just like Venerable Vũ Khắc Minh once did. No need to do anything. Just sit. Let everything settle on its own. Who knows? Maybe that moment is the very miracle we've been searching for.